Hello, everybody. Jason Duff, New Age Revolution Cave. It is a Sunday. No, it isn't. It's a Saturday. It's a Saturday, and we're gonna do a special power hour right now. We will do the WrestleMania deep dive review tomorrow, fittingly on a Sunday. That's when WrestleMania is. I have completed WrestleMania 1. I have completed my thoughts on it. I, of course, enjoyed it thoroughly, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. Now, usually we have Power Hour questions from all of you, and there are plenty, but we will resume that next Sunday. Yeah, we'll get back to Power Hour on Sunday, Wrestling with the Past on Saturday. But I wanted to do my own Power Hour to talk about some of the things going on in the world of wrestling, specifically Vince McMahon. So, if you are unaware, and everything that I'm going to talk about is opinion based on allegations. That's it. There is no determination of guilt or innocence at this point. But Vince McMahon is absolutely 100% no longer a part of the WWE in any form as of right now. At least that's what the report is. Vince McMahon has officially resigned from the WWE yesterday. And that was due to allegations that surfaced recently. Now, if you have not heard about them, they are extreme. And I'm not going to talk about all the extreme details because I'm sure some of you watch this with family, and these are extremely sensitive allegations and extremely graphic allegations that I won't go into entirely. But in short, Vince McMahon is accused of basically grooming and abusing a woman who, I think her age, it's multiple reports. This is an adult. This is a 30-plus-year-old woman. This could be a woman that's slightly above 40, slightly less than 40. Who knows? In that age range, I believe that they're calling her Janelle Grant. So I read the 67-page report, whether that was a deposition or whatever it's called legally. The report of allegations, the court document. There's a generated court document. This is going to be brought, legally to Vince. That Vince somehow stumbled across this person, this Janelle Grant, a couple of years ago or so. And she was in need of a job, and he offered her a job. But there were soon to discover conditions related to that employment. And according to the report, those conditions were for her, Janelle Grant, to have a physical relationship with Vince McMahon. And according to her, now this is according to Janelle, how this played out was absolutely a case of grooming. It was a slow build, not so slow, but it was steps closer each time to Vince, getting what he had in mind. Conversations that transitioned into more sexual in nature, more romantic in nature. Started out with hugs for Mr. McMahon and cuddling, and then full on physical relationship. Now, that in and of itself that's enough. That's bad enough. But the accuser, the victim, went very much into detail about some of these encounters with Vince McMahon. And they're horrifying. They're absolutely, they're extreme. Vince McMahon, certainly according to the accusations, Vince McMahon shared her with a fella named John Laurinaitis, who was Johnny Ace in WCW or NWA and other places, and is the brother of Road Warrior Animal, and was a longtime employee of WWE, Vince McMahon's right-hand man at times. So apparently, Laurinaitis was also gifted this woman from time to time, may have taken part in physical activities with Vince and this woman at a particular time. But Vince often had another person involved with he and this female. And one accusation is beyond atrocious. Vince is accused of doing something to her that is so foul and so degrading that it need not be mentioned. But Vince, well, again, I don't know who's watching this, but apparently Vince relieved himself on this woman, and not a number one, if you know what I'm talking about, and then expected her to continue to perform for the third party while Vince went and showered himself off, and then came back and joined the party while this woman was still covered in filth. That is her accusation. There's also text messages that are concerning, allegedly from Vince McMahon, that are, first of all, written like a 13-year-old girl. Vince McMahon apparently is a texting moron, if these are indeed Vince McMahon's texts. They're awful. They're out there online. You could read them. And there's a lot of stuff in those texts that are it's just awful. You know, Vince is an odd fella, if these accusations are true. Vince has some serious, some serious issues, including being a criminal. In the land of, quid pro quo, if you do this, you'll get this. And if you stop doing this, you're going to lose this. All right, so that's that. That's the accusations. Vince has resigned from the WWE. Slim Jim has pulled out of the Royal Rumble this Sunday as an advertiser. The TKO Group and Endeavor, the new company that owns WWE, quickly separated themselves from Vince. Vince did the same. He resigned. Of course, he's going to fight it. Of course, the allegations are untrue. Blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of stuff coming out that there's allegations that Shane McMahon knew that that Vince was, wanting Shane to be a part of this lifestyle. I don't know. And maybe that's why Shane distanced himself from the WWE. Maybe Stephanie knew and Stephanie distanced herself. I don't know. I have no idea. The report also indicates that Vince and Linda McMahon are not together. They are married legally. They are married on paper for financial reasons, but live separately and have for a while. I can't imagine what the children's relationship is with their father, Stephanie and Shane. There's other wrestlers named, one in particular, Brock Lesnar is named as not taking part in activities, but Vince shopping this woman to Brock Lesnar as part of her contract deal or as part of her employment. That, part of the deal of hiring was you would do these things with me, you would do these things with whoever I want, and I'm also going to give you to Brock Lesnar. I'm also going to loan you out to Brock. And whoever else, I don't know. Okay. How do we feel about that, folks? Look, Vince McMahon, Vince McMahon created an organization that, was my childhood. He created superheroes. And by created, I obviously Vince McMahon was not the performer in the ring, right? The performers performed. Hulk Hogan performed, Roddy Piper performed, Jimmy Snuka, Junkyard Dog, so on and so on. Those guys were the characters. It's hard to say Vince created those characters. I'm sure he came up with ideas with other people and the performers themselves and to create this character. But without Vince McMahon, right, we wouldn't have the WWF back then anyways. And, we wouldn't have had our these childhood memories. We wouldn't have had all the fun that we had watching it, growing up watching it and caring about it, all the toys that we had, all the wrestlers we admired, maybe even met. I would be a different person had I not stumbled across the WWF at age 8. And Vince McMahon was always a part of it. And when Howard Finkel died, when Mean Gene died, we talked about the voice of our childhood. Howard Finkel, the voice of my childhood. Mean Gene, the voice of my childhood. Vince McMahon was the voice of my childhood. Gorilla Monsoon, Jesse Ventura, they were all, auditorily iconic, right? Different than visually iconic. Auditorily iconic. Vince McMahon's commentator voice is drilled in my head. It's just in there. And then, of course, as a kid, not knowing really who Vince was and what his role was. I mean, you don't know anything as a kid. You just watch wrestling. And then as you become an adult, you learn about, the steroid scandal and some of the allegations of, child abuse in the early, in the late 80s or, stuff that, Vince may have had full awareness of, but did nothing about. You hear about all that stuff as an adult, and then you're like, all right, well, what a jerk. And then you get into some of this stuff, and if true, hard to wrap your head around. Look, I think money and power. Vince McMahon, I don't think is much different from the Mr. McMahon character. I think Vince McMahon knows that he is obviously ridiculously wealthy, ridiculously powerful in the business world, I guess, in the wrestling world, I don't know. Has everything he's ever wanted, has people serving him, and is in charge of these big, bursting personality muscle men. And he is the leader of them. He's their captain. These big, strong, intimidating, aggressive men, Vince McMahon is leading them. So then that turns him into this aggressive man. And of course, Vince would hit the gym earlier than we ever knew. We didn't know that Vince was as muscular as he was until he did the Mr. McMahon thing. And he finally took his suit off. And you said, oh my God, what has he been doing? Well, it makes sense, that Vince McMahon is the head of all of these big, giant men. And so he himself turns into a big, giant man. He wanted to stay up with his employees. He wanted to be able to compete alongside of them. He wanted to be in the gym with them. He wasn't going to be a Jim Crockett type promoter, right? He was going to be Vince McMahon. And so he made himself look like them. I think money and power make you bored. And I think over the years, I think it makes you bored. I think it makes you overconfident, obviously. I think it makes you elevated above the rest of the world, above the normal person. And Vince acted like he, was abnormal. And, one of the worst things I saw with Vince was the Real Sports interview with Bob Costas. If that's what Real Sports, whatever it was, the HBO interview, when he was a total bully. He was a jerk. And he was just flaunting around his power and his arrogance and his size or whatever. We don't know if Vince McMahon could back up his talk. He didn't have to. People are intimidated by power. They're intimidated by money, you know. And I guess the point I'm making is that people who have everything get bored. And if these allegations are true, they're not surprising. They're shocking. They're shocking to read. They make my stomach turn, but I'm not surprised, because that's what happens when you're bored and you have a lot of everything you need and you have a lot of influence and a lot of power. You treat people subhuman. And if these allegations are true, Vince McMahon treated this person less than human. Less than human. Now, should somebody take that for a job that allegedly was about $80,000 a year? That's a nice salary, but I don't think I'm going to be abused and assaulted for 80 grand a year. So, you know, an entry-level position with lots of promises. I think he even threw around the vice president of talent relations to this girl. And, you know, that comes with probably a $500,000 salary or something like that. But she was taking all of this for 80 grand and some promises. Then this is the girl that originally caused Vince McMahon to resign from WWE, sell the company, because he paid her to be quiet. He paid her somewhere around $2 or $3 million to shut up about all this. And for whatever reason, she's talking now. I don't know why, but she's telling her story now. So a little bit of it falls on her. You know, this is not a child. This is not somebody who's unable to stand up for themselves. She got caught up in this horrible situation and never got out and took this abuse. Of course, she is the victim. Of course, I'm not blaming her in any way, but I wonder why she didn't get out sooner. I wonder why she didn't run away sooner. I assume it was Vince was promising her a lot of things that would make her life easier, I suppose. You know, I boycotted the WWE sort of years ago anyway. I haven't watched the product. I couldn't care less about it. I think the ownership from 1984 on down has been almost cultish, you know. We have no idea what has ever gone on truly in that organization and truly between McMahon, his employees, his, you know, we have no idea. We have no idea the stuff that has happened. We have no idea the lives of these wrestlers and what they do. You know, but it's awful. And sometimes when you see somebody so arrogant getting away with something, you just naturally want them to lose. And I find myself at that position now. Like I hope he gets destroyed. And I don't know what destroyed would be. You take somebody like, oh man, I can't even remember the guy's name. The guy who had all the sex scandals and, you know, Bill Clinton, and the report just came out. What the heck's his name? Epstein. You take somebody like Jeffrey Epstein, right, who's mega powerful, mega rich, mega entitled, mega bored. And when you're bored, you do some of the things that Epstein did. Well, what happened to him? You take this arrogance and you put that arrogance in prison, and days later, he's dead. Days later, he can't take it anymore. He kills himself. I don't think McMahon's going to prison over this. I think McMahon is entering his own prison. He's removed from his company. He's going to fade off into obscurity and infamy. He's no longer going to be, especially if this all turns out to be proven true, he's going to just become an infamous, hated person who did so much good on the surface for all of us, right? Brought all this stuff into our lives as kids. And do I think Vince was always like this? No, I don't think so. I think that he, I just think that this is what billionaire or gazillionaire status does to a person over time, you know, and you get older, and I think you just push the envelope and you get away with more and more and more, and you get bored. and you do more and more and more to ease that boredom. Vince McMahon could not be a regular guy. I think it would be too impossible for him to be a regular guy. So, you kind of hope that he just goes away. I think Vince is too arrogant to kill himself. I don't think that'll ever happen. I really don't. But I think he'll work very hard to clear his name. And the crazy part is, I think Vince, if Vince is guilty, I believe that Vince thinks he's innocent. I believe that that is the twisted, warped mentality, the reality of a person like him, that he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything, and I think he's had to go through life saying that and getting out of trouble and having other people get him out of trouble, that he's absolutely just expecting this to go away too. And I hope it doesn't. I hope whatever is, if he's guilty, however he can be punished, that's what I would like. I would assume that he cares very much about not being a part of his company anymore, but he hasn't been for a while. But in his mind, he was. In his mind, the WWE was still Vince McMahon's, right? It's still mine. I guarantee you that he thought, even from the outside looking in, even with new organizations buying, even with the new purchase, I think McMahon always thought, this is mine. So we'll see. So I wanted to come on and talk about that. It's hard. I've always been able to separate, the wrestlers' performances outside of the ring and their childhood meaning. So, we've gotten in conversations about Jimmy Snuka, the accusations against Jimmy Snuka. I just saw Jimmy Snuka for the kid, the wrestler that I grew up with. Even going modern, like Chris Benoit. Can I still watch a Chris Benoit match? Yeah, sure. If I was watching that era of wrestling, sure, I'd sit through it, I'd enjoy it, and I'd say, oh, that's a great match, despite what he did. Because that's what wrestling is. You have to suspend reality in order to watch wrestling. And then somewhere in the back of your mind, knowing that these are still real people. So will I, as I'm watching 85 WWF, 86 WWF, Vince McMahon, will I still watch Vince McMahon? Will I still enjoy his commentary? Sure. Because if what they're saying is true, Vince McMahon was just playing a character on TV, and he grew into an awful monster. But you suspend reality and you continue to enjoy the product. So that's my thoughts. It's hard to read. It's not, I'm not surprised, but it's hard to read. It's hard to imagine that a person is that arrogant that they're willing to hurt somebody so much, and then potentially throw their entire life away. But that's what people like that do, I suppose. All right, that's all. That's the Power Hour. It didn't even go 30 minutes, but, it was a special Power Hour, so it wasn't just all 30 minutes. I got some wrestling magazines in the mail. The ones from the guy that never... So the guy never sent one. Then the second one I won from, he sent the wrong one. Said that they'd all be coming in the mail. They haven't. I got my money back, and I left them a couple of scathing negative feedbacks. I can be kind of I can kind of jab you in my feedback. I didn't just say never received. I just said, eBay's simple. I pay, you ship. This guy can't seem to figure that out. That's the kind of feedback I leave. That's kind of a jerk, right? That's jerky feedback. But come on. But I got my money back, so that's fine. I think soon I'm going to buy one of the slightly more expensive 84 or 85 magazines. I think I'm going to pull the trigger on one and not get killed. I mean, it's like $20 with free shipping. That's okay. It's for an 85. I think I'm going to do that because those magazines are getting harder and harder to pay correct money for. So that's that. We'll do that. We'll look at the magazines later. Maybe I'll throw them up tonight. I don't know. Maybe I'll talk about them tomorrow. But that's that's all. So go read the 67-page deposition prior to eating dinner, and then become disgusted and ashamed of somebody that we, considered part of our, collection of childhood heroes. Good night now.